Well, ladies and gentlemen, speaking about fascinating technologies, we saw some rocket technologies. Does anyone remember, and please raise your hand, a technology called the Metaverse? Does anyone remember that? Okay, it's not that far away, I guess, because it was quite fascinating. I remember drawing up visions of colorful worlds where we could run without legs and play chess and eat digital sandwiches. Well, maybe I'm stepping a bit too fast, but I think that metaverse is dead, right? I have a feeling that that vision is not true anymore, but I think a more important shift happened. During those times when we're talking and trying to find out where this metaverse may go, a new transition reappeared, and it is the industrial metaverse. We've talked in Latvia about dual systems, one in real life, one in the digital world, and we're of course talking about the industrial side with things like spatial computing, digital twins, immersive simulation, real-time visualizations, and nowadays, it is becoming from a pilot project to an operational infrastructure. And this is what our next speaker will dive deeper into to reveal the new reality that we are living in. He is the Chief Technical Officer at Proverse Interactive. Let's welcome on our stage from Finland, Antti Vikman. Welcome, Antti.
Thank you.
The stage is all yours.
Yeah, as prompted here, Metaverse is dead. Long live the Metaverse. So we're from Proverse, and what we do in Proverse is industrial and defense side Metaverse. And whenever somebody tells Metaverse, they are first thinking this Second Life, Happohotelli, any kind of stuff that Facebook tried to do, which is basically a hang-around environment for people to go and just meet each other. But what we do and where we concentrate far more is the connectivity. How do we connect different things together? And I will dive a little bit into what those different things are, but in a short, Metaverse is not just for people meeting people. It's people meeting AI, people meeting robots, people meeting sensors, AI meeting robots, and so on. It is anything and everything that happens either on the virtual world for training and simulation, or as a digital twin-like for a real world. But let's define a few things here first. Like, when we start thinking about the metaverse, the first thing is, okay, there are 3D objects. Maybe, yeah. That's not always the case. You don't necessarily need it. But for a lot of visualizations, they are actually nice to have. Then you have digital twins, which are basically 3D objects where we have hooked in some sensory data and information which we are presenting. Quite static observatory type of thing. This is the old style teacher is teaching from the front, but we actually want to interact, where we start going to what we could call bidirectional digital twins. It's not only your capability of seeing what that machine, person, or device is doing, but your ability to actually control and change what they are doing, whether that's a drone, robot, or a simple stupid valve in some pipe. And then you have virtual twins, which is your full simulation of the system, so that you are not only able to control it, you are actually able to simulate and predict what would happen if you were to do that change. Now, they require increasing amount of information from the surrounding things or stuff which we have. And to be honest, the last two terms are something I dropped in here because we are still trying to coin them as an industry where we are going with them. But when we have either the bidirectional digital twins or virtual twins, they start to require a control. That control is isolated to it. The entirety of the metaverse doesn't need to know how a plane is flying in a flight simulator. It just needs to know there is a plane and it is in this location. The person driving a truck simulator needs a very little information about that. It doesn't really care about aerodynamics that much and such as the flight simulator does. And if we go to virtual twins, even more so. So those are isolated. They become actually their own little digital twins, which needs to communicate with others. And that's where federated digital twins or virtual twins comes into play. There is no single metaverse. Metaverse is a connection of things. That is about you tweaking and getting them to talk to each other. And as I said, it's not much information sometimes that is needed. And if you are about to operate a big crane, there is a tons of onboard systems already predicting you what you are doing and restricting you from doing stupid things that would actually break the crane or be extremely harmful. And that's a great thing. But that means it is its own unit, and it's going to present its own digital twin or a virtual twin to the metaverse and give some rights for the usage. Now, if we think of it, and we would try to create a global or city-wide, like a virtual twin, which has a one authority, which is capable of deciding everything, you don't get people to agree that. What you need is basically interoperable, capable mix and matching things, so that we can work together and match those things. So when you have a truck driving on a harbor, it becomes part of the harbor's metaverse environment. That harbor's metaverse or the digital virtual twin is already part of the city's virtual twin. When the ship comes, that's the same thing. So we are matching them. They are individually useful, but in a bigger context, they become more. And that gives you the data sovereignty as well, which is superiorly important in defense side, but it is super important in the industrial side as well. It's not just control and a safety feature, it's also commercial reasons. We don't want to share all the data. We don't want to give everything out. But one thing still I want to say from this before I go forward, there is also things which are sometimes yours and sometimes not. For instance, the shelters is a good example. We have tons of shelters in Finland which act dual purpose. They're usually sports halls or storage spaces during peacetime, but they become bomb shelters if ever there is a crisis. And in such things, you are actually shipping the whole control of the system. Not just the data it produces, everything that is there, including its connectivity and its calculational power. Now, where is the metaverse running or the digital twins running? They're running everywhere, literally everywhere. We used to talk about an edge computing, where we have an edge and then we have a cloud. But that's not the case anymore. You have an edge in the camera, in the car. You have in the gateway, which is in the car, sending it forward. Cell towers are now providing you both computational capabilities and a storage capacity for certain cases. Regional centers do that. You have cloud. If you have some sort of a factory setup or a private 5G, you already have a server infrastructure there. And now, also satellites are actually starting to offer both computation and storage capabilities in a max. So when we are talking about that we are running something in the metaverse, it literally can be anywhere. And it can be even multiple places. It can be a cheap version of the AI which is doing the detection of flying objects running on the drone or any kind of system platform you are driving it, or it can be running in a command center. Now, command center has much more power, capabilities and such, it's much more accurate, but if the connection is broken, we have a backup running next to it. And a lot of times when we talk about this like an edge computing or a metaverse or such things, it's like, yeah, it's a connectivity, we have the connectivity, we are gonna need a 6G and so on. No, we don't. We actually do drive 360 cameras providing 100 megabits a second over 4G networks because we don't send all the data. We shape the data, what we need to send to what the person is currently looking so that we are doing it smartly. And that's a lot what we do. So how do you interact with the metaverse? Now we have the data, we have it all there, and we are doing it. Sure, there are use cases of simulation, training, and such, where you want those VR glasses on your head. They're perfect for it. That's what they are meant. There are cases, and AR is a good thing. But if you're a firefighter, you're going to dive into the smoke, you're not going to want a VR glasses or even an AR glasses on. You probably want a sound signal telling you you should probably turn right from here because there is some person and it seems that a building is still structurally safe for you to go there. But it's equally tablets, it's browsers and such, because the metaverse is not about this fancy little Tron or Ready Player One style system where you go and you plug yourself in. It's not a matrix which is eating you completely. It is the information, the metadata of that virtual simulation you are in or that real world you are looking and interacting. Or sometimes the mix of those. There are use cases for that one as well in defense. Or it's an APIs. APIs being here the most widest possible way of using the word, because the way how AI wants to consume data is not what we traditionally think as an API. It is still meant for interchange of an information, but it is very not human-like way of consuming it when you want to do it very efficiently. So it's a mix and match of things, and you just plug it in to observe it or interact the way you actually want. So what does this mean then in a practice? What does it change? Now, we can start building small. It's enough that we have an empty metaverse where we start getting a glimpse of information. By the way, when you want to do a metaverse very effectively, and which is like stuff which we spend lots and lots of time improving, you need two things to be precise: location and time. When you have a location and time for any observation, whether that's a video, audio, an event that happened, and they are precise, you will start getting a lot of benefits on that one. You can have two cameras detecting the same happening, and you can start building out from that one things. You get two ways of frames. You can start building 3D models out of them, which you can then start simulating and analyzing. But that's the core in there, basically, that we have those data. We know where it came, what it did. And then that allows us to simulate, predict, whether that's about maintenance, which is a typical use cases, but it's also about healing them, factories itself. It's like, okay, we know that something broke. There is a forklift that doesn't work anymore, but that's okay. We use another forklift. The system can start communicating. It can start making decisions. And you have the control who gets to do what kind of decisions. And you can even experiment, which comes to the accelerated, innovation space. When you can choose who you share the information for and what part of it, then you are going to be able to tell, let's experiment in this corner of the factory, that kind of AI making the decisions. And if it's not good, you can even run 3 different AIs next to each other, telling, you can all make decisions, but we only use one of them, or we use the best one of them. So you can test, you can try things out, you can take away the control, and you have the full capabilities of mixing and matching things, whether that's a defense, factory, city, or anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Antti Wickman. A round of applause. Thank you for showing us how this is so fascinating to see how it was transformed, and that actually this first idea of a colorful world has actually transformed into something so useful. And I think in Riga we're also trying to do that and trying to transform our local systems into a metaverse. I know there are experiments with traffic cameras, with water systems. And what do you think is the end goal of the metaverse in the industrial version?
I think the main goal in that one is basically to give it the human a full control. Although we talk about an AI a lot and how AI is basically shifting and shaping it, it's actually the fact that there happens so much things that we cannot observe and figure out and get that one. So if we get the full model and our little helpers, we actually can start doing the leading with the data or informed decisions on what should we do and where should we go.
And you get that very important part of speed into your daily routine, so that's highly effective. Thank you, Antti.
Thank you.
Antti Wickman. After you.